Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. DraftKings Week 7 finally approaches us. We have a lot of interesting things to talk about for this weekend's slate of NFL DFS on DraftKings. We've got a game that was moved from 4 p.m. to the Sunday night football game, but it stays on the main slate, and it's one of the best games, going to be one of the games where there's so much traffic in terms of both team stacks being available, both running backs from both teams, multiple wide receivers from both teams. It's going to be a very highly played game and highly rostered game. And it leads us to having the Sunday Night Hammer is finally back, something that they took away from us a couple of years ago on DraftKings, where now most of the slate's going to be done. We got an island game to watch to end everything off. We also have a couple of key injuries that we're going to have to get to on this slate. Joe Mixon is out, opening up extra value at running back with Gio Bernard. We have Austin Hooper out with appendicitis. That's new. Opening up possibly some other value at tight end with Njoku or somebody else on Cleveland. We try to keep this Friday show a little bit pulled back, a little bit broader. We're not talking about 1v1s on or 2v2s on this show. Should I play this guy or that guy? We save those for Sunday morning on twitch.tv/Al_smizzle. There's a link down below. If you want to go check out the live stream, I'm live 45 minutes before kickoff every single Sunday. What time is the show on Sunday, Al? 45 minutes before kickoff. Is that every Sunday? Every single NFL Sunday, 45 minutes before kickoff. Click the link in the description so we can see you right there. Every Friday, I talk for about 45 minutes to an hour with my chat on Twitch, and they come up with different questions that we can go over. So let's bring them in and let's talk about this slate. Any questions they want? Browns receiver that I want would be probably Odell Beckham, I guess. But like, again, all this news just broke. So like, I kind of have to dig into all that stuff. And that's why we kind of stay a little bit elevated. We're on final descent into this week 7 slate, but like, we're not coming in for a landing just yet. We still got a little bit of time. We're still got our trade tables down. We still got our seats reclined. We're not panicking and saying, we got to have this, we got to have that. We got time. So this is where we want to set up our if-then statements. Thoughts on Washington stack this week? Am I allowed to talk about this? I don't know that I mean, I think Terry McLaurin's amazing. Okay. I mean, Terry McLaurin is somebody that you're going to want to have shares of. We've seen him matched up with some of the best corners in the league, pretty much, or best defenses in the league every single week. He had Slay in week 1. He had Pat Pete in week 2. Cleveland's a very solid defense, but they can be beaten. Baltimore, very solid defense. They were trailing this one. He got a ton of work. The Rams with Ramsey, the Giants with Bradbury, and he's still already averaging 16.2 DraftKings points per game. He's still gotten a ton of volume, and maybe he's been less efficient, right? Only 1 touchdown through those games. And spotty volume, and sometimes a little bit less efficient. Ramsey caught 3 of 7 balls thrown his way, 7 of 12 balls thrown his way against the Giants, and now he's finally got this super plus matchup. I think he's great as a one-off. I don't know that you need to stack him with his quarterback for him to be fine. Like, he can have a smash fantasy day. He can have 24 to 30 DraftKings points, and his quarterback can have like 17. So like, I don't know that you need to stack him. I love him as a one-off, or if you're going with Cowboy stacks or secondary stacks where you're playing somebody on the Cowboys and want to bring it back with McLaurin. I think he's going to be extremely popular this weekend, and I don't suggest fading. If you want to go somewhere else, you want to attack Inman, I think it's a little bit thin. If you want to go to tight end, that's kind of all I have to say about. Redacted shirts available in the Teespring store. Thoughts on stacking Burrow for huge leverage off Gio? I mean, Burrow's in the 5 stacks video, so I'm all in on stacking. I'm with you. If you want to stack Burrow, I was fine with that before. I don't think that's changed. I wonder if it's like you're saying, like if people are playing Gio and they set rules that no quarterback being in their lineup with the running back, and so that's going to hold down some Gio or some Burrow stacks. Awesome. Because I think that Burrow stacks are certainly in play. I don't think that you need to exclude Gio because he should catch between 4 and 6 balls if he plays 80% of the snaps. If he's on the field that much, they're going to throw him the football. And they project to be losing in this game, so even better. Does the Falcons Thursday night game make you worry about Gurley workload Sunday? No, not really. I think Gurley's fine. And we got that new emote. Smiz5's in the chat. Gurley's a $5 running back this week, gentlemen and ladies. How many QBs would I use in 20 max? I think that you have to consolidate. I mean, I try and consolidate across 150. I don't like having a lot of shares of quarterbacks. I don't want to, on a 12-game slate, I'm not playing 18 quarterbacks to just, I want stacks of every single guy. I'm not trying to cover every box. It's impossible to do. So I want to focus on just the players that I want, and I want to have more lineups and more combinations with those players. If I had to choose just one game stack, GB Houston or Seattle, Arizona, I think GB Houston with a secondary stack of Seattle, Arizona, because I'm not ignoring that game. I'm not like people are like, well, I should totally fade Seattle, Arizona. I'm like, you probably shouldn't do that. Probably shouldn't do that. But there's going to be a lot of people playing combinations of that game. So like this week more than any other week, you have an opportunity to set up your late swaps. And we talked about this a lot on stream. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of minutes here on this video talking about it, but because that game's going to happen 45 minutes after the late games end, you're going to have time in your head-to-heads to look through all of them and see if you're blocked. And if you're blocked by somebody, meaning like if they have DK Metcalf, let's say, you can reverse engineer their lineup and say that they have exactly enough money to play DK Metcalf, and you have DK Metcalf, and that's the only player that both of you have remaining. He's 7,200. You know that they've spent 7,200. You've spent on DK Metcalf, and you're down 5 to that guy. You have two choices. You can either take the L, or you can swap to one of the other receivers in that game that is cheaper and give yourself at least a chance to win. You know, because if you have DK and they have DK, you're both going to move together, and they're going to beat you because they're already ahead. But if you swap off of DK to somebody else, that gives you a chance to win. Something you need to focus on this weekend, not just in your cash games, but prioritize those, but also trying to maximize the amount of money that you're going to make in tournaments, because 90+% of the field is not going to do that, and it gives you a massive advantage, especially on a week where you have 45 minutes to decide. Best punt defense for 2,500 or less. Let's talk about the cheap defenses real quick. Apologies for the cough. So Washington's got a really good front seven. They have not really turned that in to getting a lot of sacks against the Giants, the Rams, Baltimore, and Cleveland. But this Dallas offensive line has not done very well, and we saw what happened on that island game with Dalton against Arizona, who does not have as good a front seven as Washington. So if you want to punt with them and in the hopes that they get extra pressure, fine. We know that as good as the Steelers offense is, Ben does have a tendency to take sacks. If you want to go with Tennessee, fine. Like you're looking for pressure is what you're looking for. And I'm not really concerned with giving up points, right? So if a defense can score enough, if they give up 25 or 28 points in a game, if they get enough pressure, which causes interceptions, fumbles, and gives you a chance at scoring a touchdown. If you get 7 or 8 points out of a defense that's this cheap, you're usually pretty all right. What you don't want, essentially, is a defense like the Lions gets like 1 sack a week, right? Like that's not enough pressure on opposing quarterbacks because it's just not going to cause as many turnovers as you need. Like the Cardinals against Seattle, they're getting multiple sacks in games, and they have opportunities, and they have some guys that can score as well if they get their hands on the ball. So that's nice too. We're never really going to go after the Jets on defense because they've done it a couple of times, but they just put themselves in so many bad situations. And again, see, look, 24 points against, 6 points. 37 points against. They scored 8 points that game. 7 points, they gave up 27. It's more about, can you get pressure? Can you cause turnovers? And I think that people pay way too much attention to, they're going to give up too many points, so I can't play them this week. I think that that's a flawed philosophy that's been proven wrong so many times, and people still go down that road. If you're playing 150 and a few 20 max, and my overlapping lineups are uniques. I used to do this, and it got too troublesome, and I just stopped doing it. But like, if you want to put in the time, You guys know that I build 3 lineups by hand every week for the 3 max games. That's the way I went about it. I would then use my settings in the optimizer to build 17 more lineups that I would then put into the 20 max games. And then I would add more, right? You don't have to start over. So it's still going to use the lineups that you have. I'd add more and build the other 130 to finish off my 150. I think that would be, if you want to use the optimizer, that's the optimal way to go. 20 lineups you can build by hand, but if you're a little bit time crunched for it and you want to have the optimizer build them because you like what the optimizer is doing for you, that's the way that I would go about doing it. But it takes some muscle memory. It takes some practice time and downloading CSVs and knowing which ones are your 20 max to be able to make that work optimally for you and not get kind of screwed up and twisted into a pretzel in your own brain. Can I go through the 6 to 6,500 wide receivers? Okay, let me go through 6 to 7K because I think that's a little bit wider band. It gives me more that I can talk about there, but we'll hit on it. I already mentioned that I really like McLaurin at 58. Robbie Anderson, if you want to go back to him, I don't know for sure. I haven't looked into this, but if you have access to a wide receiver cornerback matchup column, I haven't read this yet, but Mike Clay at ESPN puts one out, and basically every site has one now. Try and figure out who Lattimore is going to be on. If you want to avoid him, that's fine. Whether it's going to be DJ Moore finally seeing more targets in week 6, more like he did in weeks 1 and 2, and Robbie Anderson seeing less. But again, overall, Chicago's a very good defense. The Saints have been a defense that's added points. So I think that Robbie Anderson's not going to be played all that much and is actually a little bit sneaky this week. If you think that Odell is going to have a big game, he had 17.4 DraftKings points the first time that they played against Cincinnati. I think that it's spotty. I think he's tournament only at this point, which is shocking, but that's just the way that he's being used. My favorite is probably Keenan Allen. We'll watch for the Friday practice reports. If he is 100% a go, I think that he is. I'm not going to say a lock because there's nothing safe and nothing's ever really a lock, but I think there is a high probability that we should expect 10 plus targets from Keenan Allen going up against Jacksonville, unless they get up like 28 points in the first half and then they just run the hell out of the ball with their 2 running backs and just deflate it and go 40 rush attempts and slow down the clock and never snap it with less than 3 seconds. So it just kind of is what it is. Chad is saying Lattimore versus DJ. My question is, and I don't know this off the top of my head. I'd have to look into it. Sometimes cornerbacks shadow. They travel all over the field. Sometimes cornerbacks stick to a side. Sometimes they shadow every week. Sometimes they only shadow specific opponents. So I don't want to give an answer that I don't know for sure. I would assume that DJ would catch Lattimore. But if Lattimore is stuck to a side some weeks, then they can have DJ move around. So that's why I didn't want to speak to that. Tyreek Hill makes for a great play at 6,400. You know that the targets can fluctuate here. 3 against, you're not getting double-digit targets from Tyreek Hill pretty much any week, but he doesn't need double-digit targets to tear the roof off. So this would be a perfect tournament play to me, who's got a lower floor than most people give him credit for, but also as high a ceiling as anybody. So the gap between his floor and his ceiling is different, right? It's vast, which makes him less of a cash game play. But because he has access to that ceiling, we've seen it so many times. Him, Randy Moss, D-Jax, maybe 3 of the best deep threat wide receivers of all time, just complete outliers that are able to get behind defenses more often than other players ever in history, that like you can't just put normal rules on them. Well, he should regress to he's different, So like for tournaments, I love him. For cash, I'd rather go with somebody with a higher target share like Keenan Allen. Because I don't expect 10 targets out of Tyreek Hill, but I love him for tournaments. CeeDee Lamb, I think we can expect 8+ targets out of pretty much every week, especially with the ADOT being what it is with Dalton versus what the ADOT would have been with Dak, who challenges more downfield, where you could see games where CeeDee Lamb would fluctuate, right? And he'd have 6 or 7 because Dak better at spreading the ball around. Dalton, and maybe it's Dalton's talent plus the added injuries to this offensive line, have equaled a lot more targets to the running backs and a lot more targets short and inside. So CeeDee Lamb, fine for me at 6,500. I said I would extend a little bit. Kenny Golladay, I love stacking up wide receivers, pass catchers against Atlanta. They've given up the most points to opposing quarterbacks on the year. That doesn't look like it's going to have any chance to change recently, and 6,700 seems like it might be too cheap for him. Y'all want to take your L on Will Fuller yet? I'm just asking, because outside of the bagel against Baltimore, Dude's been pretty damn consistent with a high floor and access to a ceiling. We haven't even seen his ultimate ceiling yet. Touchdowns in 4 straight games. 4 catches, 6 catches, 4 catches, 6 catches. 100-yard bonus in 2 of the 4. Highly utilized in the short and intermediate range now. And now that they're not playing Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Kansas City, now that they're playing Green Bay, Minnesota, Jacksonville, Tennessee, all of a sudden we see that Will Fuller has a tendency to have a solid enough floor at sub 7K. If he gets over 7K, 7,400, different story. But he's proven that at 6 to 7K, he is borderline cash game viable when he's at the high end. At 59 or 6K, he's definitely cash game viable. Closer to 7K, it's a little borderline, but he can definitely pay that off and should be in your tournament allocations because he can tear the roof off any single week. Really feel like Harrison Bryant at min price with Hooper out. I'm going to have to wait and sit on the Browns guys at tight end. I haven't really decided. Njoku or Bryant with Hooper out. My brain tells me Njoku, but also I know that they don't really like him all that much, right? I know that he's not really what their plans are at tight end, and like they just haven't really utilized him all that much. So you would kind of expect in a next man up situation for Njoku based on past performance, right? We've seen him be the lead guy in Cleveland, and theoretically being the secondary guy on the depth chart, that he would just step into that main role. But like, I don't know for sure, right? I'm going to have to look into this more. We'll get into it probably in Discord all the way over through the weekend. Go click the link down below, join the Discord. There are subs only channels. If you're subscribed to Twitch, you have access, and that's where most of the traffic happens. I'm not trying to get you guys to sub on Twitch. You do what you want to do. There are free channels as well. They're just not as active and as populated as the subs channel, which during football season pretty much goes 24/7. So like Bryant or Njoku, I have not made my decision yet. One is 3K Njoku and one is 2,500. We'll figure this out over the weekend as we go. I think it's fine to say I don't know, and I just haven't made my decision yet. And like, I could look at a projection set and say, okay, well, you know, Labs or Lineup HQ or whatever, they've made their decision, so I'm just going to give you theirs. But like, I honestly haven't made up my mind yet, but I'll look into it more and we'll talk about it in Discord. You think Hooper being out could negatively affect the run game? He's a good blocker. He is a good blocker. That's true. But that whole offensive line is greatly improved. So like, I don't think it's like this thing that's going to turn that run game, which has been super efficient. And like the first game, I think they ran like 35 times against Cincinnati and for like 260 yards or something ridiculous like that. The Bengals are finally in Al's circle of trust. I honestly believe, look, here's my thoughts on the Bengals. Okay. He's good. There's no way that you could have watched the Bengals this year and come away with, nah, Joe Burrow can't do it. Kid can't cut it. He's good. He does not have a good offensive line. And if we go to the underlyings, if we look at the metrics and we say, okay, anybody who throws the ball as many times as Joe Burrow throws the ball, and anybody who throws for the completion percentages that he has been able to throw for, and has thrown for the amount of yards that he's thrown for in this amount of games, it should have counted for more than 6 touchdown passes. You can't throw the ball this much for this many yards and have this few amount of touchdowns. It just doesn't happen. He's been extremely touchdown unlucky so far. And over time, I'm not saying it's going to happen all in one game. Regression doesn't happen all in one game. Now, well, Joe Burrow is clearly going to have 6 touchdowns this week. No, that's not what I'm saying. But it will correct itself over time as long as his usage and efficiency stays this high. Like last week, he hit Higgins on a deep route and he went on like the 2-yard line. He also has some talent with his legs. He's got 2 rushing touchdowns so far this year. And I like the talent that he's throwing to. We've seen him have couple of drop touchdown passes from Drew Sample where he had Sample. He made the perfect throw where it was only in a spot where Sample could come down, and the DB made a fantastic play, ripping it out of his hands from behind. We know that no matter how dusty you think AJ Green is, he's getting enough targets and is catching enough balls to help out. Eventually, he's going to fall his old bones into the end zone and score a 6. T. Higgins has looked like an absolute find in the draft and has been a great fantasy contributor for us, but has 2 touchdowns in one game. Even though he's got all this usage, all these deep balls, 67-yard catch, 30-yard, 26-yard, like they're utilizing this kid well, and he never catches number 1 coverage because of AJ Green on the other side, and Tyler Boyd just gets to run free in the slot, which is how he is most effective. There's no way that all these guys are going to keep posting zeros in that touchdown column. So from a fantasy perspective, I like the talent of Joe Burrow. I love the fact that he has a full complement of pass catchers, and I honestly think he's good. And those touchdowns will correct over time. Just happened on Twitter. Aaron Jones missed practice and questionable to play. Lovely. Just what we need. More value at running back. So set up another if-then statement. If Aaron Jones is out, then Williams becomes your another value play that you need to add to your allocations. Any love for Swift this week? What are we projecting for him? Talk to me, chat. I want to know how many touches, just touches, carries plus catches. How many touches do you think Swift is going to have this week? I clearly think that he is the best talent at running back on Detroit. We know that Arizona has been a terrible defense and one that we want to stream running backs against for like 8 years. So nothing's changed there. He had 17 touches last week after 8, 1, 10, 6. I'm looking at chat. I'm seeing a lot of 15, 17, 18s, 14s. There's a non-0% chance he gets 8. Hey, camera. Hey, camera. Hey, camera. I'm right here. I'm literally right here. I haven't moved. Like, at all. Not even a little bit. There. See? Thank you. Stay on me. Post bye week, he's being used as he should be. I hope so. They've been running a 40-year-old AP for 3 yards in a cloud of dust. He gives you no variability. Like if AP's in, you know he's not catching the pass. He's just not. So like that makes it easier on a defense. Carryon hasn't looked great either. He hasn't. I think Swift is by far the most talented guy. I would love it if he got 20 touches a week. I can't bank on that right now. So I'm caught between on Swift. I'm caught between, are people going to chase last week's line against Jacksonville? They're going to box score watching and say, oh, he's clearly the guy now. And he's going to be overplayed because he had 30 fantasy points last week. Or is he going to be easy to leverage because of all the other running backs that we have on this slate between Gio and Jackson and, David Johnson? Running back is absolutely stacked this week. Kamara, if you don't like Elliott, fine, but he's there. Henry against Pittsburgh, I get it if you don't want to go with him, but like he's there and he's going to hold a percent in tournaments. Aaron Jones, if he's not there, that opens up Williams, right? Where is he? Running back? Jamal. 4,000. To quote my friend Marble C Money, are you kidding me? He's 4K. If Aaron Jones sits, he's 4K. So like running back is absolutely stacked. Kareem Hunt might be the best running back on the board this week. Connor, great play again this week. Mike Davis, great play again this week. Not all these guys can be 25% plus in tournaments. They can't. Mixon's out, that creative value. Robinson gets a a good amount of looks. He's been really, really solid. If he can find his way into the box, he could have a fantastic day considering how much they should be playing from behind, and this pass game work is going to be consistent. If he can bust a big run or catch against the Chargers, we're looking great. Todd Gurley, $5 running back this week, gentlemen, whether you like it or not. And as much as we hated his pass game usage the first 4 games with 8 total targets and 4 catches, in the last 2 games, 9 targets in 2 games and 7 catches. So at least he's contributing there, and now he's got a matchup against Detroit, who is very soft against the run, and we saw what he did against a very soft run defense, looking really great against Carolina. There's almost too many really good running back plays this week, and then you're getting into Swift, and then you're getting into David Johnson going up against Green Bay, who's gotten thrashed by opposing running backs. And we haven't even talked about, or is this not including it yet? This is a 12-game slate now, right? So like now it includes Oakland, because that was an old page. Now the game includes Oakland and Tampa Bay, so you got Rojo going up against Oakland. So like, okay. There's a lot of running backs on this slate. Whole lot. And anytime there's that many choices to be made, there's that much more leverage to be had. There just is. Right? So Rojo is 6,200 against Oakland. So do you limit your running back pool? I haven't decided yet. I think that there's going to be great spots for leverage. I work on my lineups after I record this. So like while this is rendering and uploading to YouTube, that's when I start working on lineups and stuff. So like I'm gonna have to figure it out. I just know that there's too many. You still get to see how they just added the other game to the slate. They added the moved night game to the slate and kept it's a full Sunday slate now, including Sunday Night Football. Would I play my cash game lineup in a 4-man league? Yeah, 4-man league's fine. So I think 3 running backs in flex works for GPP or 4 wide receivers in theory better. They're the same. For tournaments, they're the same. For cash, I prefer 3 running backs. Do I see any way to leverage the Seattle-Arizona game? I think everything's going to carry. I think the running backs are going to be under. Like guys like Drake at 4,800 with all these other new values added to the slate and now possibly Jamal Williams added to the slate. Drake is going to be sub 5%. And I know everybody, Drake, but like, I was asked a leverage question. DK or Keenan straight up? I mean, I can't do that. Like that, if that's a season-long question, then DK, right? But on DraftKings, we have salaries and they're 1,000 apart. That 1,000 comes in handy. Keenan Allen by far the best wide receiver value. Yeah, he's the number 1 wide receiver on the week. Drake is a terrible play. We're asked about leverage. Like you gotta kind of learn to think out the box, guys, right? So like, think about it this way. Let's look at the game. Your lineups are going to come down to this game. What are people going to do in this one game? People are going to stack this. They're going to stack this and this. They're going to bring it back with this, right? Or him. They're going to do the other side as well. They're going to have Kyler Murray. They're going to stack it with one of him or him. They're going to have a lot of Hopkins, and especially with the running back values, they can afford to do this now. So how do you get away from this combined percentage? The way to get away from that combined percentage is to either work in the tight ends into your stacks. That's one way to leverage this, right? Go with a lower floor, higher ceiling play in tournaments that people aren't going to hold, or utilize the running backs and eschew the passing game. So guys like Carson, who, you know, is a low floor, high ceiling guy, but definitely using the passing game, right? I'm talking for the salary, and he's not going to carry a lot of percent this weekend in tournaments. He's just not, because everybody's going to focus somewhere else. If you had to rank based on salary, right? If you had to rank based on salary all the running backs on this slate, where are the running backs from this game? They're probably out of your allocation, right? So Kenyon Drake against a really bad defense last week, 20 carries, no catches. That's alarming. 2 touchdowns, one of them on the last play of the game, for 4,800. So am I saying he's a core play? No, most definitely not. But that's not, like, that's not the point. The point is more, what can I do that's going to get me off the crowd, right? And the crowd is going to be on him and him and him and him. This is where the crowd's going to be. So how do you get leverage? And leverage meaning if the thing happens that you're saying is going to happen, the players that played these guys and or the quarterback paired with them does not win. And the way to do that is either via the tight end with somebody just in chat mentioned Arnold or Olsen, or going with the running backs in Carson or Drake, or possibly even Edmonds if you believe that he can turn Tariq Cohen type usage into a 25-point fantasy day, because they're going to be sub 5%. And that's what you're looking at to leverage the field. If Edmonds has a 2 touchdown day and you have him, you're going to win that tournament over the people that stacked the passing game. If it's like some weird occurrence happens, and that's what leverage is all about. If the thing that people are expecting to happen doesn't happen, how can I most take advantage of it? And like, here's the other big point about this. There's so much value now on this entire slate that I don't think you need to go completely off the reservation to build your lineups. Right? You'd rather play Tom Arnold. God damn it. Is it Galaxy Brain to cap Bills wide receivers because the Jets suck so bad that the Bills shouldn't have to pass in the second half? Here's my thought with the Jets. And I've thought about this for a couple of weeks. And yes, I've used bringbacks sometimes, but I don't. I say, at most 1 Jet, which means that I'm allowing what are called skinny stacks, which means just the quarterback and the pass catcher, right? So if we look at this Jets game against the Bills, if you want to play Josh Allen, and I understand why you want to play Josh Allen, because we know that he has this sort of ceiling, 30 to 36 to 40 fantasy points, right? He's got multiple touchdown passes in every game. Multiple touchdown passes in every single game. The bonus here for us is that defense has not been good. They've been obliterated by guys in the slot. So we need to know if Crowder is going to play. He was apparently limited on Friday. So we need to know who's going to line up in the slot. If you want to bring back player, I think that the bring back player on the Jets is whoever lines up in the slot. If you want to bring back player. If you want to run a skinny stack, and a skinny stack means quarterback, wide receiver, no bring back, I'm fine with that against the Jets any week, because as good as Crowder was in a few games, 27, 20, 28, he also has the ability to go for like none because that offense is trash, right? So we're going to look for who is playing in the slot this weekend. If it's Crowder, I'm fine with him being a bring back, and I might only limit to him, maybe one other. Smith has played mostly on the outside. Everybody's cheap, so just find out who plays in the slot if you want to bring back player with Josh Allen stacks this week. Naked Josh Allen also in play, but because like there are game situations where like they're not running him as much. So he's not the same quarterback that we had last year, who the majority of his fantasy scoring potential was tied up in his legs. He's throwing more this year, right? He said before the season, I don't want to run as much. And then week 1 against the Jets, he ran it 14 times. But then 4, 4, 3, 4, like this is more normal. This is not Kyler Murray or, Lamar running it 9 to 12 times a game, or Cam, right? This is no longer that. So every game, multiple passing touchdowns. The problem is they've gone to like, his passing touchdowns have gone to like Dawson Knox, Tyler Kroft. They're not always going to Diggs or Brown like we would hope in this sort of situation. How do you find out who plays in the slot? You just know who's a slot receiver and who's not. And like if Crowder's healthy, he runs in the slot. If Crowder's out, we'll figure it out. Right? Like it's not going to be the guys that are big outside receivers. It's going to be like Berrios. Mike Clay's wide receiver cornerback sheet. Yep. I'll just text Mike. Mike, who's playing the slot for the Jets? Oh, it's going to be this guy. Okay. Here comes the chat name dropper. I know you guys are coming in with that. Screw you, chat. Cash game tight ends. He's good. Doughboy okay for cash? Yeah, if you got to do it. The opposite of redacted. Yeah. I typically look to go cheaper at tight end, right? But like with all this running back value, like he's certainly in play. He's most definitely in play this week. Way more so than some other weeks. Guess on Clay's text chat, you coward. Any stacks you'd run against quarterback, running back, and wide receiver from the same team? I guess if you're running Bridgewater stacks, I'm fine with adding, like, I'd need an expectation of like 7+ targets for those running backs. So like Alvin Kamara, I'm fine. And I've mentioned, right, that it's like Kyle sent me the exact number. I've said it's around 1% because I think that that's enough, right? I think that's good enough. But like Kyle sent me a text, because I mentioned this on the show yesterday. 0.7% of the time, a quarterback, running back, pass catcher since 2015 have all scored 25+ points. And like 7 of those or 8 of those were Breeze, Kamara, Michael Thomas. So like he would be one. I think Elliott's one because 10 targets, 8 targets, 11 targets. And you don't usually think of him in that way, right? And I think that it's way more viable now than it was with Dak. So like I probably am going to allow it with that. Definitely not doing that in any Tannehill stacks with Henry, even though I know that that was a winning combination last week. Aaron Jones, we have to determine if he's out. Kareem Hunt, people want to say, oh yeah, you could stack Baker and use Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt has not seen more than 6 targets in any one game. And in the 2 games that Nick Chubb has been out, he's gotten 7 total targets. So I'm not going to be using Kareem Hunt if I'm building Baker stacks, which I'm probably not building Baker stacks, but that's a whole other story. James Conner, not going to be using him. Mike Davis, aside from last week's 3 targets, 10, 6, 9, 8, those are wide receiver numbers. So like you're looking for guys that have a realistic path to 20+%, 17 to 20 or more of the target market share on their team at running back, if you're going to include them or allow them in lineups that have their quarterback. So like that's the thinking. It's like I don't need to just give you a list. Say you can use this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. I want to teach you the thinking so that you can make those decisions on your own. So like if you can project 20% of the market share targets on that team, or 17+% of the market share targets on that team for that running back, like I think they're going to throw it 40 times, and I think he's going to get 8 targets. Okay, you can include him. You get the weather rant. I don't really worry about weather unless it's massively extreme weather. Weather affects football way less than people pay attention to weather affecting football. It certainly affects things. I'm not saying nothing happens, but like it's drastic. Like wind over 25 miles an hour. Yeah, I pay attention to that. Snow? I don't care. Don't care about snow. And like I definitely can't make a designation or a call on Friday morning about what the weather's going to be like on Sunday afternoon, because it changes. So like that's something that I wait until the very last second that I have to make that decision. You know what's actually great for that is like Fantasy Football Now, or any show like it, right? Where they've got reporters in every place and they go to those reporters, look at the wind behind them, right? Or you can use Twitter, which is a great way to contact people who are actually boots on the ground, like the beat writers. And when you do it, be nice. They're your eyes and ears. Tweet at them nicely and ask a question kindly about how do things look? This is how you need to phrase it, right? If you're gonna at a beat writer, hey, have you noticed the quarterbacks having any trouble throwing the ball in the wind during warmups today? You know, how much do you think weather will affect them based on what you're seeing in warmups? Thank you for everything you do. If you're kind, they're probably going to respond to you. If you're a jackhole, they're going to block you. So, like, don't be a jackhole. Pretty simple, right? New running back ranking with the news. I mean, yeah. Gio is now in play. If Aaron Jones is out, then, you know, Williams is in play. There's a lot of value. Whole lot of running backs available this week. Limit your list to the best of them. Are Henry and Keenan Allen okay in cash together? My rules for cash when it comes to playing players on the same team. The more players you have from the same team or the more players you have from the same game, the more you're introducing variance into your play. However, if those players are drastically underpriced versus volume, if they can get there, quote, if they can get there for you on volume alone, a couple of weeks ago, it was Robbie Anderson and Mike Davis. Neither of them needed a touchdown to get us to our value threshold for them as a player. So if you think that if they don't score a touchdown, that they can get you the points you need, then I'm fine with it in cash. Where am I on Jackson versus Bernard? I think it's coin flip, honestly. I think that Jackson has higher touchdown upside. What is the minimum salary to use? Some of the, okay, so like that's a salt to taste. That's up to you. ¿Por qué no las dos? The first thing I said, I think it was before we started the recording. I was like, you can build some nasty tournament lineups. You just put both of them in there. How's my Friday? It's good. How's yours? I hope you're having a great day. In chat, the rest of you, you smell really nice today. Washington running backs viable this week. Mike Clay, again, this is, I love getting Mike's input on certain things because Mike is disconnected from the DFS universe. Doesn't mean he's not good at DFS. It just means he's not locked into this world. Thinking about it from like a Goodfellas perspective or whatever, he's a made man. He doesn't need to worry himself with what goes on in the DFS streets. So he makes his projections and he does what he does. And whatever his projections tell him is the route that he takes for that slate. And his projections are available for free for anybody on ESPN. Just go to the Fantasy Football, click projections, sort by position, see what they are. And they're for full PPR, so they translate very well to DFS. If you look around, or to DraftKings, if you look around the DFS industry, a lot of projection models have Antonio Gibson slated for pretty much the same projection. And he's got Antonio Gibson a lot higher. So it opened my eyes to it. Right? I'm like, all right, maybe I'll consider him for tournaments because of the matchup, because of moving along and you know, during the season. Kind of is what it is. So at 5K, I think he's fine. I think nobody's going to have him. Right? Like what percent, who do you think the highest played running backs are going to be, chat? So like as it is right now, looking at labs, we've got like Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, Kareem Hunt, Mike Davis, Zeke Elliott, Justin Jackson, Kenyon Drake, Edwards-Helaire, and this is clearly going to change. And they have Gibson at like 5 to 8. That's going to massively change now with Mixon out because Gio's now going to slide into that 20% range, right? If Jones is out, Williams is going to slide into that 20% plus range. If Thomas is out, I agree with you that Kamara is going to jump a little bit. Hunt's going to be highly played. I agree. So I think that it's very easy to leverage the field this week. You can pick if you're building multiple lineups, you're building 20 lineups, right? Or if you're building 150 for the mini max, it's not going to be difficult for you to leverage the field with really, really good plays. It's just not. Like, you're looking at Fantasy Labs and their projection right now. And again, this includes Aaron Jones, who's now questionable at 25%, and does not include Gio. But you talk about Carson at 5-ish, Swift, Gibson, Derrick Henry at 5-ish, James Robinson 5-ish. These are really good running backs. We're getting a ton of volume. So, like, it's not hard to leverage the field at running back, especially not this week, especially with more value opening up and consolidating the percent played on a specific number of people. So I think it's kind of interesting. Jeremy Hill's probably a steal this week. Yikes. Cards D did a fantastic job. I mean, that offensive line was getting wrecked. Dallas's offensive line was just getting crushed the entire game. With all the value, who are we spending up on in cash? Interesting. So, like, with all the value, I think that's going to push Alvin Kamara into most cash game lineups. If you're playing 50-50s or double ups or head-to-heads, I think Kamara is going to be in pretty much all of them. I think that Kelsey is somebody who is going to be in a lot more, like, he was already going to be in a good amount of cash game lineups. I think that now he's going to be in even more of them. 21 targets, 17 catches in 2 games against Denver last year. So it opens up the premium guy there. I think you're going to see a lot of people paying up at wide receiver where they don't normally have to or get to do that, right? On DraftKings, because you need to lock in the value at wide receiver or at running back. And even though they've been friendlier with the pricing this year, I think we're going to see an awful lot of Keenan Allen. I think this is going to be a lot of cash games right here without building you an entire lineup so people can just copy paste it. But you said that's a cash game lineup. Nah. I think this trio is going to be in a lot of lineups. I think this is probably the most likely trio that's going to be in most cash game lineups. And then 1, if not 2 value plays. Gio Jackson, one of the 5K guys, if people want to do that. I think McLaurin's going to be in a lot. Good point. I think he's going to be in a ton of them. And then you're going to see people attack the high-priced guys like Adams, attack guys like Hopkins because of their massive floor. Like, Hopkins against anybody, right? Bad game against Dallas because Kyler was ridiculously inefficient. 2 of 8 for him. This game, 7 of 9, did not get downfield at all. 11, but like 28, 26, 20, 32. Like, if they keep feeding him this many targets, especially against a game that should be as high scoring and competitive as this one tends to be and as giving as Seattle's been against opposing wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins could be a 25 plus guy for cash in this spot. And again, because of the running backs, you can afford pretty much anything that you want. You can afford tons of volume at wide receiver and tight end, where you normally can't afford to do that. I'm still up in the air on Deontay because I don't know 2 things. I don't know if he's fully healthy. I haven't gotten the Friday practice report from Pittsburgh yet. So that's 1. But Deontay at 4.2 is way too cheap, like broken cheap. Oh yeah, there's another guy. Forgot about him. Hold on. I'm a little shocked that nobody's asked me about him yet. Sammy Watkins out. He's running. He's on the field. He is on the field with Patrick Mahomes, gentlemen. I'm not on the field with Patrick Mahomes. None of these, only like 2 other pass catchers are on the field with Patrick Mahomes, right? Kelsey is, Hill is, Robinson is, for sure, a lot. Maybe Pringle. But like, Robinson's running the most snaps. Maybe Hardman, a little. But he kind of slides into that Sammy Watkins role. He's 3,400. So like him, if you need value at wide receiver, it's Robinson or it's Deontay Johnson. And right now, my issue with Deontay Johnson, talked about this on Fantasy Focus yesterday. And As I've said before, I think I don't know is a perfectly fine answer. And if you can't deal with I don't know, then suck it. Chase Claypool has been outstanding, but all so far this season, Chase Claypool has been an if-then statement. If Diontae Johnson is out, then we play Chase Claypool. However, there is such a thing at the NFL level as a merit-based promotion, and nobody can argue that in the games that Diontae Johnson has missed, that Chase Claypool has been anything other than good. Very, very good. But he only had the one big game in terms of volume, 11 targets in week 5. With Diontae Johnson out in week 6, he only saw 4 targets. He did really good things with him, right? He gets this swing pass that counts as a run because it's a lateral. But he's got a touchdown in 2 straight games. You know, he's a great downfield threat. What I don't know is Diontae Johnson going to go back to his usual role? And are they now going to elevate Chase Claypool's routes, snaps on the other side of the field in the place that Diontae Johnson is healthy? Because before that, they have been using James Washington in that spot. And that's something that I don't know, and I don't think we're going to know until the game is happening on Sunday. I don't know if Diontae Johnson is going to lose his job. I don't think that he is. So if Johnson plays and still runs all those spots out of his spot in the offense, are James Washington and Chase Claypool going to split on the other side opposite of them while Juju runs in the slot? And by the way, Tennessee has been really bad at defending slot receivers this year. So if Juju is going to have a bounce week, this would seem to be the week that he would have that bounce week against a team that's a little bit soft at defending the slot. So there's questions this week, at least in terms of snaps and routes run for Claypool and Johnson. But this is absurd. This price for Diontae Johnson at $4,200 is absurd, but knowing what we know right now, I think Robinson's the better value if you need it at wide receiver, and I don't know if you do or not, but it's there if you need it. And if you want to get away from it, you're saying, well, I don't want to have 2 Chiefs in cash or the weather, or I don't know, or what, then go with Diontae Johnson to give yourself a little bit of a change up. If you want to have Kelsey, if he's your cash game guy and you want to come down to somebody like Diontae, who should theoretically, if healthy and playing, should get 7-8 plus targets in that offense. Inman, tournament only. Sorry for the heart attacks. What? What's my favorite run it back for the Jags? Like, if I'm like, who outside of Robinson? I'm going to look closely at projected percentage because all their wide receivers, I mean, all right. So looking at their tight ends, Eifert didn't practice. We don't know for sure if he's out. If he is, Pillsbury O'Shaughnessy is in play and nobody's going to play him. 2, and it gives you value that you can use to spend up somewhere else. 2, looking at, I don't want Pittsburgh in this. We need to know Chark's activity level, right? 14 targets last week was outstanding. He only turned into 45 yards, but this is very reassuring for how they're going to be utilizing him moving forward. If he's healthy at 5,500, I'm not expecting 14 targets every week, but it tells me that he was at least healthy enough to go. We've talked about this before. Are players being hampered by something structural in terms of injury, or is it just pain management? Because if it's pain management, they got great drugs at the NFL that helps them manage that pain for 3.5 hours to get them through the game. Keelan Cole has been very, very good and somewhat consistent and getting good enough end zone targets to be a very good tournament play for us. He's been quite good, and he's pushed somebody like Conley way down. If Chark is out, I like Conley more. If Chark is in, I like Conley less. Just a pro, really freak athlete. Laviska has been DFS Twitter's favorite rookie pet for the entire season. We haven't seen a really breakout game from him. I like his versatility. I like the size. I like the athleticism, but it has not translated to fantasy scoring, at least not yet, at the price that we have him at, right? So like at 4,500, 14 is good. It's nice. But like, if you're talking about somebody that can win a tournament for you, we need him to break a long break a tackle and get out to a long run where he can get us a touchdown and a 100-yard bonus and get us 25, 26 fantasy points. I'm not saying he can't do it, because he certainly can. He just hasn't yet. And the Chargers are a tough defense. So be interesting to see if he can get that done this week. None of them are going to carry a large percentage. So aside from Robinson, so as a bring back, it's just going to depend on how healthy you think DJ Chark is. And I think Cole and him are the two top targets that you should be looking to bring back if you're not going to use Robinson. An explanation for Cooks' upward trend, and do I like him at all as a pivot off of Fuller? Yeah, Cooks is fine. I liked Cooks all offseason, right? Like we were talking about how I thought in best ball season, building Houston stacks was so great in the mid rounds because you could get Deshaun and you get Fuller, then Deshaun and Cooks in 3 of 4 rounds. So it was pretty easy to get, and Cooks, outside of having that, that really terrible week where he was somewhat chalk at 4,500, he's rebounded with 33 fantasy points at 4,100 and 21.8 at 5,000. I just want consistent targets, and that seems to be what we're not getting out of him. Xing out that week against Minnesota, 9 targets against Tennessee, 12 against Jacksonville, 5 against Pittsburgh, but that's a very good defense, 8 against Baltimore, 5 against Kansas City. Green Bay is good, but they're not at all like a shutdown team. Yes, they give up more yards and touchdowns and fantasy points to opposing running backs, but this isn't a team that focuses on their running backs, and they use their wide receivers sometimes, and guys like Cooks, as a release in the passing game, more like a running game for them to try and get on first down 5, 6, 7 yards out of a quick little pass to one of their wide receivers that isn't named Fuller. So if he stays in that 8+ target range, I think he's great. I think there's a good chance that he does. I would set a floor of targets for him at around 6 this week. You play Hunter Henry and Keenan Allen same category. Already answered that. I'm fine with it. Burrow, the lowest price cash viable QB. Yeah, I think that's fair. Houston's a bad team, good for fantasy though. Right, that's the point. That's why I wanted to stack them up. Their defense is trash and their offense is very consolidated. So like they were great for best ball teams because you know where the ball's going to go over the course of the season. And I believe the word that the phrasing that I used was they're the team that is most likely to be involved in a shootout every single week. 36-42, 30-14, 23-31, 21-20-28, 16-33, 20-34. They're most likely to have 50 points plus, possibly 60 plus points on an every week basis. If I told you, hey, the Texans game against the Packers is going to have 60 plus points this week, you wouldn't be like, that's impossible. It's been a high likelihood that their games are going to score 55 plus points every single week. So that's why we targeted that offense. That's why we continue to target them. Is the DNP scaring you away from Aaron Jones? We're monitoring it. We don't have to make decisions on lineups till Sunday morning. So we've had the philosophy and we'll continue to have this philosophy that it is what it is until it isn't. So right now, Aaron Jones is in. My ears are perked up a little bit by the news from practice today. Aaron Jones did not practice today. He's questionable. Okay. Paying attention now. That gives us an if-then statement to set up. And that if-then statement is, if Aaron Jones doesn't play, don't play him. And play Williams instead. Getting up to Kyler a priority in cash? You can. I think he's great. Kyler's been outstanding, and he's not priced, in my opinion. Kyler is not priced where he should be priced. Kyler's still too cheap. So Russ is priced where he should be priced. Josh Allen is priced where he should be priced. Mahomes is priced where he should be priced. Russ is averaging 31, 32 fantasy points a game. Awesome. Josh, 27.8. He's 7,700. Mahomes, 7,400, 28 points a game. Kyler, 7,100, 28 points a game. He needs to be 76, 7,700. And the reason he needs to be that high is not the rushing touchdowns. Those are variant. I can't plan on rushing touchdowns. He's getting them, but he's just as likely to not get them in weeks moving forward as he is to keep getting them. I doubt he's going to score 16 rushing touchdowns this year, although there is a possibility he scores 16 rushing touchdowns this year. there's also the very real possibility that there are games that he does not score a rushing touchdown. So the floor is attached to the amount of rush attempts that they are using him, both scripted and him just escaping and being fast. He's getting Lamar Jackson levels of rush attempts from 2019. That is allowing him to boost his floor with rushing yards. 7.4 points, 3.1 points, 7.8 points, 6.7 points, 9.1 points. And then we get a QB1 attached to it, right? Who, aside from, he's thrown a touchdown in every game. And if he doesn't run for all these touchdowns, then these passing touchdowns would increase too. So, and against Seattle, there's possibility of both. He could have three or four touchdowns this week combined, based on where the team totals are, based on his skill set, and based on the defense versus the matchup that's in this situation. The worst case scenario is, like, for Kyler stackers, is defensive and or Kenyon Drake rushing touchdowns. I kind of feel this way. Gotti, Corey Davis? Sure. I'm not thrilled about it, but, like, sure. Here's the thing. Based on what we know right now, there are minimum 10 very, very good running back plays on this slate. I'm not going to name them. Okay? You know who they are. And if you don't, think for 8 seconds. Okay? There's a lot of them. And they're very, very good plays. Some of them are 5-box running backs. Some of them are just very undervalued versus the volume that they're going to see this weekend. Some of them are in great matchups. Some of them are all of those things combined. The prices that they're at are allowing us to get whatever stacks we want with the highest volume players that we're going to get. The fact that there are this many plays means that the percent numbers are going to be held down this week because there are more plays to play. So the percent is not going to consolidate or coalesce around 1 to 4 players like it has the last 3-4 weeks, where we see like 3 running backs at 25 or 4 running backs at 25% plus, all the way up to 40 or 50%. I don't think that we see that this week, which means that there are many opportunities for you to leverage the field in large field tournaments and even in smaller field tournaments, especially if you're playing high stakes, where people do tend to put more cash game sort of lineups in, and you can really leverage the field with specific stacks, bringbacks, and running back combinations. This is a great tournament week. I'm looking forward to going and making my lineups. I'm going to be hanging out in Discord, whenever I'm sitting at the computer this weekend. I'll chime in when and where I can. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Have yourselves a great weekend, and I'll catch up to you later. Bye.
He's a legend.